when I heard of Brahma Baba for the first time. It was 34 years ago when I reached the Brahma Kumaris after a long journey in search of the meaning of life. I came across the Brahma Kumaris at the headquarters in Mount Abu in India, and I was invited to walk through a series of pictures that, as was explained to me, were the visions that Brahma Baba had had. And these were huge wall pictures, very big. And there was this circle of the face of this man and his vision. So the first one was about him seeing himself as light, as a being of light. And then there was very separate from the body. And then there was another vision that I was explained about. That was the image of, he had a vision of Vishnu. So there was Vishnu fully decorated and beautiful and representing all these virtues and powers of the soul, and the voice in the vision telling him, this is who you are. And then there was another vision next to that, and that was a beautiful picture of a paradise on earth. And this was a scene where he could see that beings of light incarnated in princes and princesses, and it was like a heaven on earth, and the voice in that vision telling him, you must create this paradise. And then there was the last vision I was shown, each one with his circle and the face of Brahma Baba. And so the last vision was of a very dark world in a lot of upheaval, a lot of chaos and war and natural calamities and the nuclear effects. And so whilst the sister who was talking to me about the visions that he had had, I was not so interested in what the vision was about, but I couldn't take my eyes off this man's face, because I had the deep feeling that I knew this man. And so then after that, this was at the Brahma Kumaris headquarters, this spiritual university, and this was in a huge venue. And then they took me across the road into the ashram, and they showed me all around meditation rooms. They even took me to the kitchen. And I had this feeling, that is the school, and this is the home. And so I went into a meditation room, which had been his bedroom. And again, I had this feeling. I just looked at him and said, this is such a beautiful man. And there was like a recognition somehow. And so this was my first day with the Brahma Kumaris. And on the third day, after taking my first lessons of the meditation course, I met Daddy Janki. And Daddy Janki was one of the co-founders of the Brahma Kumaris together with Brahma Baba. She was very young when she started, and she was someone who, through her life, shared what she had lived and learned from Brahma Baba. And this is how I came to know him. I didn't meet him personally, but definitely through Daddy Janki, I feel I know all about Brahma Baba. And this was a home, and this was where he had started. And so I came to know about his life story and how he was this jewel merchant, this businessman, and how he had taken up a path of simplicity at the age of around 60 and taken up this spiritual path and started sharing this knowledge. So this is when he became the medium of the divine to reveal the versions of Raj Yoga. And at the time when he started sharing and people started gathering around his home, things changed for him. On the one hand, he was having these divine experiences and deep revelations of who he was as a spiritual being. On the other hand, this connection with Supreme Being, with God Himself, and sharing with people around him, the daddies, men and women and children who came to his home to have these experiences and to learn what he was teaching. So he also had to face a lot of opposition. He had to face a lot of criticism. He was attacked in different ways socially, and he was taken to court. So many things happened to him. And this part of his story has really become something very important to me, because I learned about the unshakable faith that Brahma Baba had, and how that faith allowed him to go through all the different obstacles that he was going to face. And it was like, although he was humiliated and criticized, he and his family, because they were discovering that there was this spiritual dimension and about the importance of pure thinking, pure living, pure relationships. And so that created a lot of upheaval in the Sindhi community of those days in Hyderabad. And so Brahma Baba, who had a very high reputation, who was very loved by the community, he was a philanthropist, and he was very respected. Suddenly, he has to go through a lot of criticism and a lot of opposition, and yet he not only didn't shake, but he didn't have bad feelings for those people, because he understood that something really great was happening. And the fact that God was using him as an instrument became so clear to him. So for him to understand the importance of the part that he was playing was also very revealing and an example for all of us to understand the importance of each one's part, what each one of us is meant for, and what higher purpose we are here to serve. So Brahma Baba's example, and if you walk into any center of the Brahma Kumaris, because he started in his home in Hyderabad, then they were exiled in Karachi for some years due to this upheaval. And that was the time in which something very deep was sealed in the heart, not only of Brahma Baba, but all those who were with him, our daddies, our seniors, and our ancestors, actually. And so they all became very, very experienced in understanding the spiritual nature of the soul, and they became soul conscious. So they had spiritual awareness. They would start seeing each other in this spiritual way, which would bring a completely different feeling and relationship of brotherhood. And so they spent this time in Karachi, and then they came back to India. And back in India, they settled in Mount Abu, and they had to go through a lot of hardship. They went because Brahma Baba had originally donated all his fortune. When he renounced his business, he donated all his fortune, which became like the seed, the foundation of this world university. And he trusted a young girl called Radhe, who would then become Mama in the Brahma Kumaris. And he had this trust in the feminine energy. And she created a team that would together run things because they became a community of 300. So this trust that he had in women is something that was very unique, and that he saw in them their potential. He put them in front. He made them feel safe and allow them to flourish and grow as what they would become as spiritual giants that would serve the world at large. And the daddies have traveled the world carrying this message into all nations and into all people, to all backgrounds. So this vision that he had. So Brahma Baba's qualities are really the legacy that we have, his example, how he handled people, how he had this pure love that would see virtue even in those whose behavior may not have been the best or who created some obstacles. He still had this fatherly vision for them that would make them feel included and belonging. So he's definitely not a guru for the Brahma Kumaris, although if you walk into any of the centers that were opened later, when they go back to India, then they settle on the mountaintop, but then they spread out through India, and in early 70s they will go out into the world, and now present in 130 countries from around the world, drawing the attention and the interest of people from all backgrounds, all cultural backgrounds, religious backgrounds, different ages, different professions, to understand the core knowledge of spirituality. And so, if you walk into any of our centers, you would see his pictures. His picturing in the classroom, his pictures maybe in different parts of our homes and centers. But he's really not our guru, because something that made Brahma Baba so great is that he was pointing always to the one who had made him an instrument, who was really the one teaching us through him. So he was so humble and so loyal to God. So he became like a father, a spiritual father for all of us and for the whole human family, because he walked himself all the way back to his completion, on the return journey to his completion. So this is the gift that has impacted our lives, is that he showed us that we can transform from the mundane and ordinary life that we might have been living, certainly that I was living, into a life full of significance, a life of service, a life of study, a life of, spiritual community living, and because he lived by principles that we could follow. So in a way, his life became like a pathway and left a track that we could put our feet, follow his footsteps in a way, so that we could also journey back into our own completion. And I'm sitting here in Buenos Aires, in Argentina, and I'm helping with the Brahma Kumaris. And so I would have thought when I first came, I was 24 when I reached the mountain and I met the Brahma Kumaris. I have to go back and work, so maybe things were easier. I could have thought things were easier back in the 30s in India, or things were easier on the mountaintop. But nothing was easier for Brahma Baba. He went through everything, and this is the way he has impacted my life the most. That anything that I have to face, I know that he has faced. So he has become his life has become like a blueprint for me, and a life that has become an example for anything and everything the way he used to think, the way what he felt for people, the atmosphere he would create, how he dealt with difficulties. When they went through hardship, which was when they came back from Karachi into India, and they settled in Mount Abu, they had no funds, no more money, and more than half left him. And yet a handful of very brave yogis went with him to the mountaintop. And this is where they learned the big lesson that is something that is, I tell myself, like they learned those days in which they had hardly had any facilities, that happiness was completely beyond anything material, anything physical. There were times they had very little to eat, yet he remained so stable. He had a responsibility for many children who were around him, spiritual children, and so he knew he had to be an example. But his faith in God, he knew God would never leave him. So this is something that I always tell myself. It doesn't, and at these times of COVID, we see we are living in a very uncertain time. Things, at least in Argentina, are breaking down, and around the world as well. And things may worsen. They won't get any easier for sure. But Brahma Baba's example is so vivid in my mind. You know, I know that he went through it all. And in the year 69, when he left his physical body, he didn't reincarnate, but he became someone who would serve the world in an angelic way, combined with the Supreme, from a dimension which is of thoughts and feelings. We call it the subtle region, a region of, the invisible, but that which we can perceive and feel and understand. And from there, he's calling us all to come out from the gross mundane into the subtlety of spirituality. So his last lesson was becoming incorporeal, egoless and viceless. So this practice of becoming so conscious and understanding that I am not only not the body, but also not what I do. I'm not even the role. Moira is a role. My name is Moira Low. But it's just the name of the body. It's not me. So becoming incorporeal is an awareness that I can practice whilst I'm doing my actions on a daily basis. But also it is an awareness that can take me back into silence. My original stage as a being is that I am an eternal soul. And I can go back with my mind to the soul world, to nirvana, that dimension beyond the physical, where we can reach only with our mind. And so this is the practice of becoming incorporeal. This is the supreme abode where we are in the company of God Himself. And the awareness is of being light, being eternal, timeless, genderless, incorporeal, silent, peaceful, loving, and true. This is our incorporeal stage. And when we practice this, we can become egoless. And the gift from Brahma Baba is that he had always this awareness that God had made him an instrument, that anything wonderful which was happening around him was really coming from God through him. And although he valued his qualities, he knew that he was an instrument, and this awareness made him egoless. And so he was able to appreciate everyone's part, And he was able to learn from everyone around him, understanding that he was only an instrument. And when we become egoless, we can also become viceless. And this is when we are able to, through the understanding of spiritual knowledge, we are able to apply it in a way that we express our virtues. And so the more we come from within, using our qualities of love, of peace, we're able to live in harmony, and we overcome selfishness and, comparison and all these games that come from the ego, or our personality of reacting to everything that comes from anger, or the dissatisfaction that comes from greed. So the more we practice being incorporeal, we become egoless. And the more we become egoless, the more we express this personality free from the influence of vices, because we're able to, through the practice of meditation, by becoming the observer of the inner being, we're able to recognize the power that lies within the soul. And maybe I have wanted, and I've been searching for peace all around, and I've wanted that to be expressed in other people's behaviors or circumstances. And yet, when I become silent enough to observe, I realize peace is what I am. And when I am able to express this, I will naturally let go of anger. And like this, the more we recognize each one of our qualities, then naturally that will be the light we're able to shine into the world as we play our part. Each one is a gift to the world. Each one is important, and we're all here. Each one of us is here to serve a higher purpose, to contribute to the common well-being. And so it is when we offer our qualities that we offer that gift. So this was Brahma Baba's example at a very practical level, and I feel that very much in his company every day. When I think of how I should be doing things, Brahma Baba's image comes to my mind. And I also want to become an angel like Brahma Baba. He became angelic, subtle, deep, powerful. And I think we can all become that if we become silent enough and if we connect to the Supreme. So this was his gift to all of us, and I'm sure a gift to all of you. Om Shanti.